Without further ado, let's bring our first comedian to the stage. Let's welcome up here right now. It's Jasmine
I put that 15 on one chain around my neck and that's it. Ay, all the hot girls make it pop, pop, pop. Bad bitches with the
Thank you. COVID, are you here? Are you here right now? Man, I haven't been at the house in a long time, so I haven't wrote a joke in a long time, because my joke writing process consists of me saying, I'm going to get high first to get a little inspiration. And needless to say, I have not written a joke this entire time. But give it up for Rachel and Jordan. I always love hearing Jordan's jokes about nursing, and here's why. So for my daytime job, I enroll people in nursing school. And so imagine Jordan, but a lot more hopeful and less refined. But it's great because I always, my job, they're like, you got to tell them how hard it's going to be. You got to tell them how hard the profession is going to be. You got to let them know the truth so they know how hard it's going to be. I'm like, okay, I'll just tell them exactly what Jordan tells them in her stand-up. I got this. They call me and they're like, oh, so I want to be a nurse. And I'm like, oh, what kind of nurse do you want to be? And they're like, oh, I want to be a baby nurse. I just love babies and I want to be there on the front line, helping them come out, helping them to be loved and helping them, helping the mom, and it'll be so great. And I'm like, okay, but you in the splash zone, right? That means you will literally get shit on. Are you ready to get shit on, Sarah? Are you? If you get shit on, are you still gonna be nice to that mom, Sarah? No? Then you shouldn't go to nursing school. Or one of you like, oh, I just want to be there for the mom. Like, the moms are really where it's at. Like, they're going through all this hard work and they need that extra support, and I'm like, okay, but what if it's the dad? Huh? Men have babies now. That's the world we're living in. Are you going to be a bigot? Are you going to support the dad? Or are you a bigot? Are you a bigot, Tammy? Well, guess what? You can't go to nursing school. No, but I really like my job, But the crazy thing about my job is everybody there is some witches, And not like, oh, she's a witch because she sucks. But like some like witch bitches. Like they be casting spells and shit. And I be into that shit though, because I dabble in both sides. Like, I got friends who are witches. I got friends who are Christians. I'm like, all right, you cast some spells, you say a prayer, and my credit just might get better. So I'd be really into it, I'd be like, they'd be like, Jasmine, I think your chakra's a little off. I'm like, oh my God, my chakra's off? What does that mean? And they're like, it just means, you're off balance. I'm like, okay, what do I got to do? They're like, I got you. Okay, take this crystal. I'm like, all right. And they're like, circle it 4 times. I'm like, okay. And then they're like, then buy $29.99 worth of essential oils. And I'd be like, God damn it, these witches done got me again. But, I'm a modern day millennial, so I don't have just like one job, I have like a full-time job, a part-time job, and a hot side hustle, and a trench coat, to make a living paycheck to paycheck income. And so in my spare time, I'm a Lyft driver, And being a Lyft driver as a female is hard. And I do say Lyft because I only drive Lyft because Uber banned me. Who knew if you said, hold on 1 minute, sir, I'm just going to go behind this bush and pee real quick, and we'd be right back to our ride. They'd fucking suspend you off the platform. Anyway, so I stick to Lyft because they last. But as a Lyft driver, especially being a female, you get hit on a lot, And they be like quizzing you like it's Jeopardy and shit. Oh, rest in peace to Alex Trebek. Anyway, they be quizzing you though, They be like, oh, you single or taken? You're like, oh, I'm single. I'm taken. They be like, okay. Boyfriend or girlfriend? You be like, boyfriend. Boyfriend. They be like, black or white? You be like, black. They be like, ha! Ain't no black people in Utah. Lies. I'm like, oh, I meant African, 90 Day Fiance type shit. Yeah. Anyway, so I did recently get married, which is great. Yeah, yeah. And as I mentioned, my husband is from Africa, which is great, except for we speak, our native languages are not the same. So he speaks Wolof and French, and I speak English. And French and English is very similar, but sort of kind of really different. So sometimes we get like actually lost in translation. Like I'll say something super, cute. Like I'll be like, I'm gonna love you forever. And he'll be like, oh, only time will tell. And I'm like, I don't think that means what you think it means. Sometimes it gets him into a little bit of trouble though, Like the other day I got my eyebrows waxed and I came in and he said, man, babe, your eyes on fleek. I was like, what bitch taught you that phrase? I don't think I taught you that one. That wasn't in our English lessons. What's going on here? Or he always want to do like African ass shit. Like he'll be like, oh, let's go for a run. And I'm like, that's un-American. No, you go sit on this couch and eat potato chips. No, but it's great though. When I first got married, everyone was like, oh my gosh, now you gotta hang it up. Like now you're tied down. And I can tell y'all, there's nothing I love more than being a hoe for my husband. I'm like, y'all was wrong. I be sluttier than ever. And it's like, okay, because it's legal, Like when you tell your friends about your hoe stories when you're single, they're like, oh, wow, okay, again, we get it, you're a hoe, But when you're married, you're like, oh, we was doing some crazy shit. I was up, down, and shit. And people be like, that's what you're supposed to do your first year. Good for you. Honeymoon phase, yes. And it's great because you like no longer have to convince some guy to drive 3 hours for a blowjob you know damn well he's not gonna get. It's just dick on demand. You just take the remote and you're like, okay, I want the 2 set in now. All right, let's do this. Oh, so Thanksgiving's coming up. Yeah? Anyone else not excited to go home? Or is it just me? I was trying to get out of it, because of COVID, but my mom's fucking crazy. Every time you've seen me yell tonight and you thought, dang, she kind of crazy, that's my mom times 10. That's what I've been channeling. I made the worst mistake, though, by giving my mom access to Facebook. And because she's like, oh, I just get so bored in the house and I don't be having anything to do. And I was like, well, I could sign you up for Facebook and we can play Words with Friends and some different games and it'll be fun. I was wrong. I'll be like, can't play for a while because I'll be busy doing my different things, and she'll be like, play the game. Or, she'll be calling me, and I won't answer. So I'll be like, oh, okay, cool. I'll just go ahead and play the game. Then she can do that, be preoccupied. And then she messages me and she's like, oh, so you can play a triple word score, but you can't call your mama? And I'm like, oh my God, what do you want from me? Or my mom doesn't know how to use hashtags. Like one time I post on Facebook and I put something along the lines of like, oh man, having a crappy day or something, And she comments and she's like, hashtag me too. All my friends messaging me, are you okay? I'm like, listen, my mom is crazy, okay? Don't believe anything she says. Or, when all those kids were like protesting gun violence across the country and the hashtag never again was trending, my mom decides to post on Facebook, microwaved a burrito, had diarrhea for 2 weeks. Hashtag never again. But my favorite part of going home is getting to hang out with my nieces and nephews. I got some real cool nieces and nephews. But I always worry a little bit about the way they're being raised, because in my family, the bar's like super low, We're always like, well, hey, look at us. None of us are in jail. I'm like, jail, fuck the domestic violence, the drug abuse, the money problems. But hey, we not in the clink. So I go home, I'm excited to go home. But last time I went home, I was so worried. Because I went home and, my niece and nephews, they're like, oh, come play with us, Teacher Jazz, come play with us. And I was like, oh, okay, great. And they're like, we playing restaurant. We want to own restaurants when we get older. I was like, oh my God. Yes, finally, something. Break those cycles. Black excellence. So they bring me in, they sit me down, They light some fake candles. They bring me some silverware with little fake plate settings, tuck in the napkins. I'm like, oh, this is nice. Y'all really making this upscale. Then my niece walk over and she say, welcome to Burger King. How can I take your order? I'm like, Burger King, y'all up here playing Burger King. Y'all could have at least been playing Olive Garden. Oh, no, but I'm excited to go back to Las Vegas, because I can't stay in Utah too long. You can't tell I'm not from Utah, and people are always like, oh, Jazz, was it like a big culture shock moving here because of all the Mormons? And I was like, no, not the Mormons. The 2-drink minimum is what got me. And, people don't realize is that I know the Mormons, there's a lot of Mormon people in Vegas. And I was actually kind of cool with the Mormons because the Mormons love to do free shit, They'd be like, oh, you want to come to this activity? We're going to have free cupcakes. And I'd be like, oh, man, I do love some cupcakes. Man, I guess I'll go. And everything was good until someone invited me to go on Trek. If you don't know what Trek is this Mormon activity where they dress up in vintage clothing and follow the paths of the pioneers. And I was like, my ancestors did not pick cotton for 150 years for me to dress up like a literal runaway slave and carry a handcart across the desert. No, thank you, I'll pass. And the girl's like, no, Jasmine, it's gonna be fun, And then after, to cool off, we're gonna have a party on a boat. And I'm like, that's the same lie that got my people here in the first place, bitch. And that's the thing about Utah. Utah's not like maliciously racist. Like you might not get called the N-word, but you definitely gonna get stared down by the door lady at Walmart, And the thing is, it seems like it's not purposeful. It's kind of accidental. Like it makes no goddamn sense when every morning my white ass boss comes up to me and says, hey, how's it hanging, homegirl? When I just saw you tell Janet good morning 3 minutes ago. Or the lady gives you your change and she's like, oh, 1820, that was a good year. And I'm like, not for my people, bitch. But the thing is, a lot of people in Utah, they don't understand that like black people come in different shades, So sometimes people think I'm, Polynesian. Sometimes they think I'm Hispanic. They're like, yo hablo español. I'm like, no, mi hablo negro. And it's surprising the kind of shit people say when they don't think you're around. Back in my dating times, I'm on a date with this guy, having a lovely time. We're talking. I'm like, oh, what kind of girls do you like? He's like, oh, I like all kind of girls. I like short girls. I like tall girls. I like girls with big feet. I'm like, okay, that's kind of me. And then he says, except for black girls, because they angry. And I'm sitting there, all angry and shit. Just like waiting like to pull off the mask like in Scooby-Doo, like, boo, bitch, I'm black. You thought I was Moana, but I'm Tiana, bang. Thank you, I've been Jasmine Lewis. Have a great night.